Sounds good.
Okay, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us on today's very special edition of METALCON Live. Today's presentation is brought to you in partnership with the Future Leaders Program. The Future Leaders Program is presented by both the MCA and METALCON. Today's program is titled Employment in the Metal Industries, Maximizing Your Experience. And we actually have a future leader here with us doing the presentation today, and that is Sam Gray, the Vice President of Metallic Products. We are also very excited to announce that we have some additional upcoming Future Leaders METALCON online webinars coming up. Those dates, please mark your calendars, will be May 15th at 1 p.m. and then August 7th at 1 p.m. Those two will be fantastic presentations. One of them, the May 15th, will be the 101 of various aspects of the metal construction industry. The August 7th one will be maximizing your experience at trade shows and helping your future leaders and young professionals within the industry understand best practices and best actions for trade show experiences. I'm also very pleased to announce that we have our next METALCON Live coming up on March 20th, 2 weeks from today. That will be Sealant and Adhesive Technology for Metal Construction Applications. That course will be presented by Daniel Garnett, the Market Development Director of AdFast USA. That course will be an AIA HSW course. So if you're looking for additional credits for 2024, please make sure you tune in there. I'm very happy to announce that hotel reservations are now open for METALCON. For more information and to reserve your room early, please go to metalcon.com. Again, we do have several hotels, but they fill up fast. Book early. I promise you, you won't regret it. As said before, METALCON is coming up in just a few short months. Can you guys believe it? We are going to be October 30th through November 1st at the Georgia World Congress Center in Atlanta, Georgia. Make sure you mark your calendars, book your flights, and get your hotels. We'll see you there pretty soon. I'm also happy to tell you that today's educational webinar will be eligible for AIA credits and will be eligible for additional crediting with these certificates that you receive at the end of the session. To receive that certificate, all you need to do is complete a quick little questionnaire at the very end of the survey, at the very end of this webinar, that will give you the access to your certificate of completion. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please utilize the chat box on this webinar, and that is how we will share the questions with Sam today. I am so happy everyone is here, and without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Sam. Sam, go ahead and take it away.
Good afternoon, everybody. Let me see if I can share my screen here. Kaylin, I think you got to give me permissions to share.
Oh my gosh, that's right. So sorry about that. Okay, you're good to go.
All right, let's see here. Boom. All right, we looking good?
We are not seeing your screen quite yet, Sam.
Give me 1 second.
Sure. So everyone who's watching now, if you don't mind, share with us, where are you guys zooming in from today? Where are you calling in from? Go ahead and put that right into the chat box. We do have someone coming in from Illinois, another Houston. Awesome. Nice to see you guys. Greenville, South Carolina. Great. Okay. And Sam, there should be a green button. There we go. Perfect.
Okay, I'm gonna hit the show button here, see if it pops up.
I do see that. We're seeing your screen.
Okay, very good. Sorry about that. All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Again, my name is Sam Gray from Houston, Texas with Metallic Products. This is a subject that's near and dear to my heart. As most of you have expressed to me at METALCON or various shows, there has been a significant change within the industry and the environment not just specific to the metal industry, but all over. It's really hard to find good talent, and you have to incorporate new and um, unique strategies to try and bridge that gap a little bit. So today, employment in the metal building industries, and how can we maximize your experience and help you get effective applicants in the door. Okay, so a little bit of a course description before we start. I'm going to share what to look for in employees. Some of these things are going to be traditional, some of them not. And kind of the things that you should consider in that hiring process, and then some strategies on what your company can do and turn to get that great employee. And then this is whether you're just starting out or whether you've been doing it a long time. I highly encourage you to take notes, because if you use the same playbook all the time, it's not going to work forever. So I'm saying that changes are happening and you have to change with it. So if you've been doing the same thing for a long time and you're in a rut, might be time to make a change, right? So before we start, some disclosures. I'm in the great state of Texas. It's an at-will work state. Anything I cover in this course, you want to make sure that you definitely nail down the employment laws in your state, whether they're union-based and things like that. At will, the definition's right here. And I highlighted any reason on this slide on purpose to say, you can't just terminate a relationship for any reason. How that's better said is, if you're going to terminate somebody, it can be for any reason. It doesn't have to be a good reason. It just can't be a bad reason, if that makes any sense. So that's one disclosure there. The other one is, parts of this presentation are going to be somewhat repetitive and redundant. I do that on purpose to drive home the points that are the most important, and to kind of double down on things a little bit. And again, like I said, a lot of this stuff may be things that you've heard before or inherent with the hiring process. I'm going to mention those, and then how to tweak them just a little bit to get better success. Okay, so some objectives here. The importance of hiring the right talent is going to really start by, what do you want? And you have to know what you want. And by knowing what you want, you have to be able to articulate it into writing and list it out word for word. That's how you're going to get the best results. We're going to go over some challenges that are common in the hiring process. Now, that's where I kind of want people to interact with the question section of this presentation. Is, in the interest of time, I got 45 minutes to cover as many challenges as I can. But if you have challenges that are specific to you, I'd be interested to hear those and maybe give you some feedback. And then some strategies to help you overcome those challenges. Okay, so the ones we're going to cover here today is going to be how to identify the right talent and the ever-changing needs within the industry. Now that's needs of the employer and needs of the employee. Both of those are changing very drastically, and the marketplace is somewhat questionable, as I'm sure we all know. That's probably why you're here. Long versus short hiring process. A lot of people struggle with, do I try and do this quickly, or do I do it right and do it this long way to get better results? There's pros and cons to each. I'm going to cover that, and basically it's going to be off your needs. We'll cover that in detail. Competition for top talent. There are great people out there, men and women looking for jobs that are extremely capable. How do you attract them, number one? And two, how do you ultimately help them decide that you're the company they need to be working for? Budget constraints. That's a big one. Based off your resources, it's gonna really play a huge factor in how you go about this process. So I'll be able to help you out with, if you have a small budget and you need to make hires, there's answers for that, as well as you have some resources and you have some coin that you can throw at this problem. There's great ways to do that to make sure you're not spending too much money. And then the challenge, of course, which is the big one, is the lack of skilled candidates. Let's get into that. Okay, so identifying the right talent. This is a tough one, because if you solely rely on the resumes and interviews alone, it's going to be extremely hard to determine if the person you have in front of you is one, who they say they are, that's becoming a problem. And do they have the attributes that you need and that you're looking not only for your company, but for the specific position that you're in? The challenge of predicting the cultural fit, long-term commitment of candidates. Of course, we want to try and retain these people that we hire so we don't have to do this process over and over again. I know that first 2 years I was here, all I did was hiring and firing, churning and burning, trying to find the right people. So some things that we can look about in resumes and interviews. I'm going to speak about that a little bit, and then how to keep people here and kind of more or less discover if is this person somebody I want to be working with on a daily basis. What are some indicators that would suggest that they wouldn't be a good fit, and indicators that they would? Give me 1 second here. I got my notes. Okay. All right. About the resume part, I want to touch on that just real briefly. When you look at the resumes, I think everybody kind of looks at them the same way. They're going over them. They're looking for big date gaps. That's a topic I want to cover first. A lot of people look at resumes and they see a lot of jumping around, where they're at this job for this short period of time, then this one, then that one, then this one. In the past, that has been indicative of an issue, the perception being an issue with that employee. It's my understanding and observation that it's not a bad thing anymore. That's kind of indicative of millennials, and jumping around, I think, is something that's more common now in today's job marketplace, and is not something that I would weigh heavily as being barring them from employment, number one, or two, being something that should be perceived as being negative. I think you should start looking at that as not being a problem. Don't let that weigh heavy on you. At first, that was something that I was looking at pretty heavily and thinking, jumping around. I'm going to hire this person. They're going to be at a next job in 6 months. I don't want that. I just think that companies have failed to keep employees, and we're going to teach you how to do that today. Another thing on resumes, when you look at them, take them at face value. Don't let those things hold a lot of water. Of course, look them over and things like that. People put whatever they want on them, it seems like now. What I want to say is, look at grammar, look at punctuation, look at spelling, look at all those things. But those things are not really the problem. What I like to gather from that is, does this person have attention to detail? Do they double check their work? They're putting their resume out there. This is their first impression with you. They should be dotting their I's and crossing their T's, and double checking their work. This is supposed to be a document that represents them, so it should be indicative of a great first impression. So if it's riddled with errors or inaccuracies and things like that, all that tells me is there's an issue with either a lack of attention to detail, and a lot of jobs strict to detail. I know here, if you miss dashes, commas, or a zero, it has huge implications, right? So attention to detail is a pretty big one for me. And then also being thorough and double checking your work before you put something out. I'm not necessarily looking for speed. I'm looking for accuracy, and accuracy over time, you're going to start to develop that speed. But a lot of people get the wrong idea, thinking I just need to be first, I need to be fast. So that's kind of how I would evaluate those. Obviously, in resumes, you want to look for keywords regarding experience or programs that are important to you, whether it's Microsoft Office. Are they Wizard Ninja in the Excel spreadsheets? Is that important to you? ERP systems, CRM systems, whether it's Salesforce and all that kind of stuff. Look for big things there so that you can ask clarifying questions in the interview process and see where they're at knowledge-wise with those systems. Because sometimes people will put something down because they've seen it or they've been in it once or twice, claiming to have proficiency within that system. So you do need to ask clarifying questions based off of the elements you find in the resume to help you really understand what the capabilities are of the applicant. Don't just take the resume, the words in the resume as gospel. Okay, you need to challenge it. And then the interview process itself, there's a lot of different ways to go about that. What you need to do is, do it a couple times, get your feet wet, show up with a set script of questions that you're going to ask, but then deviate from that as things come up. Have a generative discussion along with structured interview questions. I wouldn't recommend making it such a formal process, because applicants that come into an interview are expecting that highly structured, high formalized interview style. Okay. So how I think you can get the best out of an applicant in an interview is based off of two dynamics. One, you're going to get a person that comes in and they're a little nervous, right? Because it's an important part of their start of their new career. They're putting on a show and a little bit of a front, so you got to watch out for that. But it's a pressure cooker moment, so they may be slightly nervous. If you have that type of individual, I would encourage you to implement tactics to help calm and relax that individual, so you can get to know the actual person that's in front of you. If they're caught up in the heat of the moment of the interview, you're not going to get the best experience from that interview. Okay. So if it's a person that's nervous, try and find a way to diffuse the situation, calm it down, make it less informal, do the small talk, tell the jokes, all that kind of stuff, get some laughter going, get them in their comfort spot, so that when you ask them questions, you're going to get good answers, and you're going to get the real person instead of something they've been practicing in the mirror, most likely. On the other side of that coin is my favorite type of people that come in with fighter pilot confidence. Okay. So those people are prepared for the situation. They've studied, they've done all this kind of stuff, and they're coming in there and they might even be a little bit cocky. If that's the situation, you need to try and disrupt that. You need to try and decide what are some things and questions you can ask that are not typical of an interview, and see how they handle being put under the gun, how they handle pressure. Do they have their bearing? Do they have self-control? Things like that. Those are some tactics that you can implement to get the most out of an interview, and we'll kind of touch back on those elements here in a little bit. So naturally, the conversation goes into the slide that's up is long versus short, the hiring process. Now, what do I mean by long versus short? Of course, when you make a hire, you want to make a good one. Again, I want to make sure everybody knows you're not, etching something into granite. You're not building a house or anything like that. It's not permanent. Okay. So don't feel so much pressure with the decision on that. So long versus short. Job postings, screening resumes, conducting interviews, all that stuff can take time. And that time could cause you to lose an applicant. So you need to kind of have a little bit of science and art in order to put your strategies together to where you're not wasting so much time and losing a good applicant, but also not rushing it at the same time and picking a bad one. Okay, so what are some different ways you can go about that? You have headhunters, temp agencies, and outright hires. Let's talk about the headhunters first. So for headhunters, that's basically an entity or a person that's essentially, for lack of a better term, a hitman, that you gave him everything that you're looking for: job description, responsibilities, duties, all those things. And what they're going to do is they're going to take all that information you gave them. If you did a good job of it, they'll find somebody that's fit for you. And they're going to use every resource available to them, or everything that they can find, to hunt down this one individual or individuals for you to look at that fits exactly the position that you're looking for. Now, that costs money. Getting into the budget constraints here a little bit. That does cost money, and hiring that person, there will be a markup, and ultimately there's probably going to be a direct hire fee, which is going to be a percentage of that person's full yearly salary. So keep that in mind. So that's kind of the high-end option, but that is the one where it's going to be more sniper accuracy with trying to find somebody. Now, a temp agency. Temp agencies, there's a lot of those. You're going to see a temp agency for every McDonald's that's out there. The environment is extremely saturated when it comes to temp agencies. If you have a good temp agency, all right, what you need to do is you need to have everything written out, job description, responsibilities, all that stuff. You need to get the people that are representatives that are going to be vetting employees that come to them seeking a job, and they vet them, evaluate them, and determine here's the best places you should probably be looking at as an applicant. Now, if you don't tell them anything, they're just going to give you people that don't fit the mold. If it's a high heat environment, they're going to give you people that, they're just not going to understand who to put where if they don't understand your company or the position you're trying to fill. So the other dynamic that you're going to have is some temp agencies are what I call body shops, where they're just going to take applicants and throw them at the wall and see who sticks. And their idea is to churn and burn. To me, that's not really good customer service. If you figure out that that's their model and that's what they're doing, get rid of them, move on to the next one. Another thing that you have to consider is there will be a markup for these employees too. And sometimes there will be a fee to direct hire. Sometimes there won't be if they reach an hourly requirement. Usually my experience is around the 520 hour mark is when you can hire somebody on from a temp agency at no additional cost, which is roughly about 3 months if you're working 40 hours a week. And because the environment is so saturated with temp agencies, you're really in the driver's seat as far as how much that markup is going to be. And I want to empower you to know that you're in control of that markup number. You really are. You're in the driver's seat. So what you should do is get with your finance guy or your CFO and figure out what is the cost for a fully loaded employee. Okay, that's everything from direct labor all the way through benefits and insurance, all that stuff. What is the full cost of an employee? You can weigh that with the hourly rate or salary of that position that you're looking to hire, plus the markup that they're trying to do, and see where they match up. Now, for example, the positions that we hire here, and based off of the math that our CFO did, it looks like if the margin that the temp agency use is 42%, that's about a wash for us. Okay. So that means that we're not overpaying to have this employee here as if we were direct hiring them or it was a outright hire. Okay. I say that to say, I don't let anybody in my conference room to discuss working with a temp agency if they're above 38% markup. So you really can work those things down to 33%, 36% and negotiate and keep it well below what's going to be a wash. And you're essentially getting employees for far cheaper than you would be if you were direct hire. Now, ultimately, that changes when you hire them full time, but that's the strategy you should take when it comes to temp agencies. Temp agencies are also beneficial in the sense that if you need to fire somebody or let them go due to lack of performance or whatever, right? It's a lot easier to do that than the outright hire. There's a lot more paperwork associated with letting somebody go with an outright hire. There's more liability, there's more risk. You got to contact OAG, you got to back out everything in the system, close it up, finish up the records, and you got to maintain those records for a certain amount of years depending on your state. You can skip all of that if you utilize a temp agency because it's not your employee. Okay, so that's another way, another tool that you can use to find the right person. And if it ends up not working out, the cost of that not working out isn't as bad as it would be an outright hire. Again, the outright hires are referrals that come in, people that walk in off the street, fill out a job application in the lobby, things like that. You can vet them, but again, you're starting at the very beginning. You have no game film on these individuals. You don't know a darn thing about them. You got to do everything yourself, whether it's a background check, drug screening, the interview process. That can take a long time too. And then again, if it doesn't work out, I've had direct hires. I think I still hold the record. I did all of that work, hired somebody, took them to a production meeting just to kind of give them a lay of the land, and they ended up quitting right after that production meeting. So they didn't actually even hit the manufacturing floor for 1 second before they quit. And I had to revert all that paperwork and do all the work to terminate an employee who literally never touched the floor. And it was just a huge bear. I hated it. So there's the plus and minuses there of the of those three different aspects. You know, the outright hires, you better know what you're getting into when you hire an individual outright hire. You know, you need to feel really good about it, is what I'm saying. Okay, some things you need to have for either the headhunter or temp agency, all right? Or even if you're going to do an outright hire, this is how you need to go about it. This is the right way. Have an established job description with duties and responsibilities. Have it written out. Now, it doesn't need to be exact and have everything in there. Make it general and vague enough so that the individual knows what they're getting into and there's not going to be any surprises, but leave it vague enough to where, you know, when they come to work here, their job is this and everything else that lies over here. You know, you don't want to have somebody that says, well, I don't get paid to do that. That's not my job description. Yeah, that's a problem right there. But how do I go back one? Okay. Nope. Okay, so yeah, establishing the benefits, the commission plan, the incentive structure, all that stuff needs to be laid out, understood, and you need to be able to speak to it directly. This is going to be something that sells your company to the applicant. If you have a really good applicant in front of you, they're not just going to be looking at the pay rate. They're going to be wondering, what else is this company doing for me? You know, what is this where I want to work? Okay. Also, something that would be advantageous to show that people love to hear is roadmap to success, is what I call it. Speak to potential growth opportunities, what they can do to grow at the company. People are really wanting to know about how they can grow with the company, opportunities to get promoted, to increase their pay. They want to know, is there northern direction for them to go once they get hired, or are they going to be stuck in a rut? If you don't speak to it, they think that they're just going to be jamming away, doing the same thing day to day. A lot of people now are looking for growth opportunities. If you get a hard charger, they're going to be asking about that. So be ready to speak to it. Another big one that you need to say right out front, regardless of what method you choose, is speak to the culture and environment at your company. It shouldn't be a surprise when they show up that, hey, things are kind of like this here, we don't do that, or hey, we do things this way, or we talk like this. Be upfront with it. Speak to the culture and the environment of your company so that they know what they're getting into, and furthermore, they know what they're walking away from. If you speak to the culture and they're thinking to themselves, well, that's just not me. That's not my personality. I'd like to go somewhere. Great. You saved yourself a lot of trouble right then and there. Okay. And that's also a selling point too. Like I said, the benefits and the incentive structure, that is something that people care about outside of just the hourly rate. We want to know, is this a place I want to work? Well, you can sell it to them. And then again, we talked about the importance of a guided tour for temp agencies. Very critical. The more information you give a headhunter or temp agency, the better results you're going to get from them, and you're not going to be wasting time in the interview process. You're going to get somebody that's already preset. I like what I'm hearing. I like the position. Sounds like the culture is a good fit. I'm here for it. This is where I want to go. Let's do an interview and find out, is this really where I want to be? But they're already going to be, 88% there at that point if you do a good job doing that. Okay, so the risk of losing a top talent to faster decision makers, again, the long process. You may find a good applicant, but like I said, you run the risk of losing good ones if you're taking a long time vetting 5 people for one position, right? So be quick about your decision. Have a good decision-making process, but be quick about it. And if that person is not working out, I cannot stress this enough. If that person is not working out, be quick to let them go too and move on. There's other people out there that are going to fit the mold. Don't try and fit a square peg in a round hole if it's not working out, okay? All right, like we talked about, competition for top talent. it can be fierce, and because there's so few of them, they're basically going to have their choosing. So now the roles have kind of flipped a little bit. So there's a lot of good applicants. There's few good applicants out there, and a lot of great places to work. Okay, so you can't just come to the table with a figure thinking that you're going to win people over with that pay rate. Like we talked about in the previous slide, you need to be able to sell your company to them. You want to make sure that, hey, I'm going to sell this. I need buy-in from you, but here's why you need to work here. Here's why we need you. Okay. And then difficulty in offering competitive compensation packages. Do your homework. Do your homework, guys. Find out what other people are doing. I interviewed other managers at Chick-fil-A and people in the same industry and things like that. Tried to figure out what are they doing to solidify hires, okay? And then I can use that information for competitive reasons. I can one-up it or match it, okay? Okay, budget constraints. We touched on that a little bit. There's two types, okay, of budget. Cost to find is going to be something, and then the cost to hire. If you got to put at least a pay rate out there, which is going to be the fishing lure to grab somebody's attention. Ooh, that looks good. Let me look into that further. That's that cost to hire, okay? So that needs to either at least be competitive or a little bit more than competitive. Cost to find, you've got to evaluate how much are you willing to invest in finding the right person, and that's going to be based off of your needs, right? You may have limited resources to invest in the extensive recruitment strategies, so you may have to get creative or do the direct hire stuff, and you may just have to churn and burn because you don't have the coin or the resources to do the other stuff. Now, the challenge of attracting top talent with a limited budget, it can be done, but it is going to be more tough. As you can imagine, the proactive approach is the headhunter, the temp agencies, people who are working for you to find the right person. Okay, that's the proactive part. You're spending money to have somebody else do the work that you would be doing so that you can do your job day to day, and then eventually you're going to get somebody that comes to your door and is already a very suitable applicant. Okay, so that's worth something. Now, the other side is passive, which is cheaper, but may take longer and you may not net the best results. The passive is cheaper, like I said, using social media, LinkedIn, Indeed, recruiting services, where you're basically just putting up a job posting and seeing who takes the bite. So again, proactive is you're going out there, you're going hunting, you're going to come back with a trophy. Passive is you're setting a trap, hoping something comes in it. You're going to check back in it later and see if anything happened, okay? And that may be hit or miss there too. So the type of position should be relative to the effort and money that you're putting into it to get the best results. If it's an important position, it's critical to your business, maybe you don't have a redundancy in place and something happened, or you have a hole there and a job or a role is not being facilitated in real time, that is a critical aspect of the company's operation, yeah, you might need to throw some money at that problem and utilize some resources that will help you get something good and faster. Okay, so like I was saying, those highly skilled candidates are few and far between, which means there's a lack of skilled candidates altogether. There is a bit of a scarcity with skill sets, especially in technology. People will say they're good with computers, or they can type fast, or they're good with Excel. And for example, I had a kid that I was looking at that was a finance major. Okay, he was hours away from graduating as a finance major and looking to get his master's. And that guy could not. He was fumbling around in Excel. For the life of me, I can't figure out how that was possible. But other specialized industries where it's niche based, that's going to be tough too. And it's going to be highly competitive. Take painters, for example. It's hard to find a decent painter because it's practically art. So you're going to have to throw more money at that situation too to try and get somebody good in the door. If you don't have any of that and you have a good training and development program, I'm going to touch on that here in just a second. You need to be looking for what I call the 3 A's: attitude, aptitude, and attendance. you got to have somebody that's positive, upbeat, and a hard charger with an attitude. If you got somebody that has a good attitude, they have the aptitude to do the job. They may not inherently have the skills, but they got the aptitude to get the job done. And you got attendance, that last one, you got to have people show up to work. That's a problem now, too. So if you can get information that shows that this person's reliable, dependable, they're going to show up on time, their logistics about getting to work don't sound sketchy, then this is somebody you might want to look at. You might want to say, okay, this person doesn't have the tools they need, but they're good enough person where they got the personality where if I train them and I give them the skills and I teach them and mentor them, they're going to turn into that great employee in that role. And that's something that's worth doing too. I would also be looking out for those people. The mindset you should be having is you need to be a training and development company that's masquerading as a manufacturing company, okay? Or an oil company or whatever, insert company here. But your first and foremost attitude and mindset, the thing you need to be geared for is you need to be great at training employees and developing them, okay? That really will broaden the scope of applicants that you can accept if you have individuals already in-house that are great at turning things over. Hey, here's our process. Here's how you do this. If you have people that can train and develop employees that don't have it, you can start looking for people and reading resumes and interviewing them and possibly make a hire based off of those 3 A's. Some strategies to overcome. Again, leverage technology for recruitment. There's a lot of ways you can do that. Enhancing employer branding, developing an efficient hiring process. These are all things that you need to be focusing on and establish before you even get to this endeavor. So if you haven't done it yet, you're behind the 8 ball. Fostering a strong company culture is a huge one. Somebody there needs to be, that's my job. I want to maintain the culture and environment at this company that makes it, one, where people are going to love coming to work and they want to stay here, and two, it attracts people to come work here. And then again, like we talked about, to be redundant, is implementing a training and development program. Establishing that will be huge moving forward. Leveraging the technology. AI is a big one that's coming up in the game right now. The machine learning, screen resumes, and identifying potential candidates. All those things can be utilized to try and vet and find the people that are right for you. Utilizing professional network sites and job portals. We touched on that already. Use that stuff to your advantage. Again, this is going to come down to need, the type and nature of the position, and the resources and financials that you have available to throw at this situation. Enhancing employer branding. Create a strong employer brand to attract top talent. That's one thing that I got from Chick-fil-A is, like, how are they able to get such great people that fit the mesh and mold of how Chick-fil-A runs their company? Well, they've developed the culture, and it's so widely known in public that people who know that, hey, I'd be a good fit there, they show up and be like, this is where I need to be. I'm like-minded. I need to work here. I have the same values, morals, ethics, beliefs, the same vision. This is where I need to be. This is going to be a good fit for me. Showcasing those values and culture and speaking to them with the benefits through various channels will be another thing that people see, and they'll be like, oh, I'm going to go take a harder look at that. Again, we talked about the strong company culture, engaging culture that attracts and retains talent, promoting work-life balance. That's a big one too. Diversity. I don't mean diversity as in like race or religion or stuff like that. What obviously the word there I need to use is equal opportunity. You need to be an equal opportunity employer. Shouldn't matter what you're about, what you look like, what you believe, anything like that. You just need the top talent. You should be running your company kind of like a sports team where you need the best players on the field. You need top performers, and really don't care what size you are, how big you are, what color you are, anything like that, okay? What I mean by diversity, though, when I put it on the slide, is diversity of thought. You want to see about hiring people who can give a different perspective and who have critical thinking skills and those types of things that can add to a conversation or add to a solution for a problem incorporating your employees and having diversity of thought with that synergy is going to be something that's hugely beneficial to you as a company. You know, you're not going to have one guy that's always coming up with the solutions all the time. Sometimes the solution for a problem is a mesh or a medley of great ideas coming from different kinds of people. And then growth opportunities. We talked about that already. Implementing training and development programs, incentivizing employee development to bridge the skill gap. We talked about that. Offering opportunities for continuous learning and career advancement. You need to be transparent. You got to be transparent about this. Again, that's that roadmap to success. Here's some avenues that you can go to increase your pay or be promoted. Here are the things you need to be proficient at in order to get to that role. Be literal with that. List those out. Have them posted even. If people see that, they will attack them very literally and directly. And then you're going to start noticing no one comes to your door saying, hey, I think it's time for a raise. Hey, I haven't been promoted in a while. And we'll be like, well, do you know this? Have you gotten really good at this? Have you mastered this? Okay. You won't get those questions if you're transparent about what it takes to move up in the company. Okay. So that needs to be listed out. All right. So we talked about, I'm coming up on time here. Again, we touched on very briefly on some challenges, and I know they were kind of like vague in general, but I hope you got a little bit of a sense of like mindset that needs to be driven in order to make these hires. I want to open things up to questions here for a little bit and see if there's any challenges that you guys are facing directly that I can't speak to. There's a lot of different ways that you can get around things and unique ways to attack problems like this. What do we have here? Okay, here we go. Time has changed. Somebody mentioned ChatGPT. I'm guilty of that too. I've used ChatGPT to help me write policies or procedures. If you ask it inherently challenging questions, it's going to give you something. I wouldn't take it as gospel either. Take it with a grain of salt and use some of the elements in there to further your independent research to come up with something. Let's see here. Okay, while we're waiting for more questions, one thing that I wanted to say about the interview process: don't be so quick to judge people by their looks, their resumes, and what they wear. You know, I went all the way through college, and I was never taught how to conduct myself in an interview. I was never taught how to fill out a resume. I don't even think I was taught how to balance a checkbook. I don't even think they're doing that anymore now. But as long as somebody looks like they put some effort into the situation, take it at face value. Okay, don't put so much weight in those trivial things. Okay, because there's a lot of great people out there that just won't look the part. They maybe won't sound the part. Maybe they're a little bit socially inept. I wouldn't necessarily make those things weigh super heavy and bar them from employment for things like that. There's great people that are covered in tattoos and all types of people that look different ways. You just don't know until you do the vetting process, but the goal there is to get them comfortable. What I recommend is if you get an applicant in the interview process, this is my recommendation, and I've had good results with this too. And let's say that the interview went fine. It went well, it went great, whatever. I would follow up with a second interview and lower the stakes a little bit. Take them out to lunch, get to know them as a real person, figure out what's going on in their personal lives, things like that, show an interest. Then you're going to start to get way more. You'll find that you'll get way more out of that than you ever would in an interview because you got a more relaxed person. The formality and the pressure cooker situation's over with. So now they're just going to be themselves. And I think that you'll garner a lot from that. What's a checkbook? Yeah, I don't know either. I heard about it. Um, any questions at all? See, we got 21 people in here. Somebody's got to want to know something. Let me hear some challenges, or does anybody else have some advice that they think the group would like to hear? Anything else I did not mention or that you want me to expound on? We got time. So one thing, okay, here it is. When you have two great candidates, how do you pick one over the other? That's great question. I've ran into that before. That's where I do the lunch thing. I'll take them both out to lunch separately, and usually there's something that transpires in that interaction that will separate the other person from the other. Now, if you got two applicants, okay, that have the skills you need, they have the right attitude, they got all these great things, it, selfishly as an employer, yeah, I want to pick the person that I want to be interacting with every day. So figure out the type of person that you have in front of you. Figure out, is this somebody I want to be seeing every day, interacting with? How do they approach problems and situations? Do they fly off the Do they fly off the handle? Do they lose their composure? Give them scenario-based questions and see how they would handle them. And then, or even ask them, hey, what's a situation where you've had somebody who violated integrity or stole an office place or something like that? How did you handle it? What was your take on it? And see what they say from that. That's when you got to really kind of do a deep dive for the individual to figure out who would be best. That's a great problem to have. If you got two applicants that are great, outstanding problem. Okay. So ultimately, what I would do there is, for me in that situation, I'm going to try and pick somebody who fits the culture and environment best. One thing that goes pretty far for me is, are you a self starter? Do you have to be told what to do all the time? Do I have to handhold you? Or are you one of those type of people that are proactively looking for work, that are proactively looking for solutions, using resources before going to their next chain of command and saying, hey, I got this problem? And then naturally, I know everyone in here has had somebody come up to hey, I got this problem. And then you ask them, well, what did you do to solve it? Have you looked at this yet? Have you tried this? And they're like, no, I see it. Somebody who's a self-starter will do everything under their power, utilize all the resources first before coming to their next supervisor. Hey, I got a problem. I did everything I could to try and solve it on my own. I got an issue. I got to kick it up the chain. What do you recommend? Good problem to have, though.
There's
Okay.
a question that came in earlier that asked if you were familiar with RPO, recruitment process outsourcing.
No, I'll tell you a little bit of background. I played football for 12 years and was in the Marine Corps for 11 years, and that's about the nature of my experience. Football, military, and fast cars. That's basically all I know. So those are all my analogies are geared off those three things. But what I did was I approached this hiring process and the challenges with it based off of my experiences. That's my suggestion is utilize your experiences, and if you don't have any, go seek some. Go talk to people within the industry, interview other managers who have hiring processes and see what they use. Um, I hope I'm answering the question there. I'm kind of walking around it, tiptoeing around it a little bit, but I approach this problem systematically and methodically as I would a problem in the military. That's how I went about it. Being open-minded is a huge part too. If you're not open-minded and you're thinking to yourself, well, I got my process and somebody just needs to come along and fit right into it, you're going to miss out on some really good people. the RPO, I'm unfamiliar with it, but if it works for you, if you have no structure whatsoever, it's better than nothing. And those programs or those resources, there's thousands of them. Okay, and they're going to be different state to state too. But if you're starting from scratch, if you don't have any methodology or structure or game plan of how you're going to go about this, yeah, you may want to look into those. Don't maybe start out using it 100%, but then just pull things from it over time. Say, hey, I like this, but not this part. Well, I want to do this instead. And then it kind of comes like a mesh of all the different experiences you've had or leaderships that you've experienced, knowing what works and what doesn't work in certain situations or with different types of people. That's when you're going to net the best results, is not, sticking to the playbook exactly and keeping the same one every time. I hope that answered it. Let's see, any other questions before we cut time here? Let's see here. It's hard to cram such a huge conversation and process into just 45 minutes. So I hope I did an okay job of trying to throw everything together and package it up nicely for you. But yes, if you come to METALCON, we'll be at booth. I got the booth written right. I think it's 833. I'd be happy to see you guys and talk to each and every one of you. Looking forward to Atlanta. I'm really excited about it. Booth 833 with Metallic Products. We'll be there with a bunch of my sales representatives. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to see everybody. I guess one thing I'll say that kind of affected me is whenever you try to make a hire and you make one and it doesn't work out or it just blows up in your face, don't get discouraged. Don't think that you did something wrong either. You could have vetted somebody completely and you made a decision with the information that you had and the decision was good. And sometimes the person just doesn't work out. Don't get butthurt or frustrated or upset about what you're doing or things not working out or thinking that you're wrong. Sometimes a person just doesn't pan out, and don't let that discourage you.
I know we're coming up on time, but we got a couple of last minute questions.
Sure, fire.
The first one is break the tie: degree with experience, licensed versus master's with less experience.
Okay, this is my opinion here. Me personally, I would much rather take the lesser educated person. All right, let me back up. Having somebody with experience is great. But with that, there's pros and cons. They could show up with bad habits or being really enamored and ingrained with how they do things, and it may not be perfectly in line with how you do things at your company. And so you have to determine, is this person coachable? Are they willing to make some changes for the muscle memory that they already have preset and built in? Sometimes that's the best way to go if you have the right person. Other people, you may say, hey, I want somebody totally green, a smart kid who doesn't have the experience, but they could learn everything the right way the first time at my company. I could train them, and what they know to be this is what I taught them. There's something to be said for that too. But again, you have to look at all the intangibles for each one of those individuals in order to make that decision.
All right, the next question. How can we enhance the involvement of direct hiring managers in the hiring process? Our interactions with HR have been subpar, leading to missed opportunities because of busy HR schedules and limited participation from owners. Sorry. Everyone needs someone, but owners never have time to review our resumes.
You have to care. There's not much to fix that ownership one. If a business, I don't care about the great machines that you have. If you don't have good people in your company, you don't have anything. A business is only as good as the people that you have in it. So it should take precedence. When the New England Patriots draft players in the NFL, that goes from the GM on down. Everyone cares a lot about that. That's the future of your company, your organization, okay? So they should care. I don't know if you can fix that. Incorporating your direct managers is vital. If they're not familiar with the process, just having them sit in and get experience of going through the process will help them develop some skills or some experience on how to go through that interviewing process, so that there's more people that can do that part, and you can kind of spread the work around a little bit. If somebody's not available, well, you got somebody else that you know and can trust that can do that process. I do recommend incorporating some lower level management into those meetings as passive participants. Yeah.
All right, that looks like everything. Thank you again, Sam, and thank you for everyone who joined. This presentation is being recorded, and it will be up on the Metal Construction Future Leaders site, as well as, I think, METALCON sends it out to everyone who registered.
Sounds great. Thanks everybody for attending. This was a lot of fun for me. If you have additional questions, please feel free to reach out, or we'll see you in Atlanta and we'll talk about it then.
Great, and keep an eye out for future leaders sessions through METALCON Live. Thanks, everyone, and have a great day. And thanks again, Sam.
Thank you.